Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Recollection Step, a Grand Archive TCG podcast, part of the Maindeck podcast family. I'm Dan.
And I am Taylor. Dan, how have you been?
Taylor, I'm great because we heard the news that Taylor Swift is getting married.
Exactly. Not only that, I think she also announced her new album since our last episode too. So like this has just been a huge couple of weeks for us. This is really good stuff. October 3rd is the release of her new album, The Life of a Showgirl. She has not announced a wedding date yet, so we'll keep you posted on that.
I want to point out that it's really these are big weeks for you. I'm very happy for you.
What do you mean for me? For everybody, Dan?
Okay, I'm not probably a fan to the same level as you. I'll just probably leave it there.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, so other than the Taylor Swift news, what have you been up to these last couple of weeks here?
Well, we just got back from Ascent Boston, which was a fantastic time, a crazy event, and that's obviously the subject of the non-Taylor Swift discussion today. But I mean, that was a lot of fun to see, and we'll be diving into that. But otherwise, just making progress on the studio, slow but steady progress, I guess. And still, until then, we got the Pokemon background here that I know you love, Taylor.
Absolutely. I'm here for this. Like, it's not even just the Pokemon background, like it's just everything about it. Like, it's just kind of like a little bit more dim than your previous space. And like, I see some Febreze and some Clorox wipes back there. Like, so I know you're staying clean. Like, this is all good stuff. Like,
yeah, I use those just to kind of just get the odor off when I'm done podcasting or recording videos. You know, I can't go home to my wife and just have the scent of TCGs on me. You know, it just doesn't work.
That ink really just like the stench of it really accumulates over time.
Yeah, exactly.
In such large quantities like that when you're ripping on those packs. So I get it. I understand. Boston was sweet though. I love Boston. Just beyond the Ascent, I think Boston is such a cool city. There's like so many dope things about it. And Fenway's there. Like Fenway, I don't even like baseball, but I really like Fenway. It's a very cool park, great stadium. Highly recommend go seeing a Red Sox game just for the fun of it. Like that, the stadium is just set up really weird because there's like weird like brick walkways everywhere. I don't know. It felt weird to me, but that's coming from a guy who like normally watches baseball at Target Field. We got some Mike's pastries, which I have literally been waiting like a year and a half to get. So the last time I was in Boston, we went to Mike's Pastries as one does. And they're like these world famous pastries for everybody who's not like, it's this famous shop. Yeah. They're famous for their cannolis, but they have a lot of awesome pastries there in general. And there's very, very widely, very, very well known, very famous. I'm rambling, but anyway, so we picked up a bunch of cannolis. We had to wait like 30 minutes in line because it was the Boston Marathon weekend because Kelsey's brother-in-law was running the marathon. And we're like, oh, okay, we're in the North End. We're doing the like Freedom Trail stuff and doing all the cool historical things. Of course, we're gonna stop at Mike's because it's right there. Stop is like wait in line forever, and then we finally get these cannolis, and we're all like hyped to eat them, but we're gonna save them for like dessert because we're going right to dinner right after that. We got a couple other things that we were gonna eat just quick before dinner as a little appetizer, and what they do at Mike's is they give you a box and they tie it up really nice with twine and stuff. So you've got to untie the twine. And then after we opened the box, took out the other stuff, closed the box, trying to retie it with the twine again, it like fell onto the street and all the cannolis just like sprawled everywhere. So we didn't get any cannolis. And unfortunately we couldn't like go back and get more because there was still like a 30-40 minute line to go through again. We're like, well, I guess we're not doing cannolis anymore. so I finally got some cannolis after like a year and a half, and they actually lived up to that hype. So if you're in Boston, I highly recommend.
So Taylor told me about this pastry place. I didn't even know they were about cannolis. I didn't know it was this like old Italian family going back to, I don't know, who knows when. And he was just like, yeah, there's this pastry place that we can go to. I was like, okay, sounds good. And then we start heading there. And he's like, yeah, it's like a 45-minute walk. I'm like, all right.
I told you that long
No, you're
before.
right. You told me the night before. You did told me the night before because we had to plan the schedule.
I would not spring that on somebody like that.
Yeah. You're right. I totally forgot. But it was a very long walk.
Yes.
It was a bit of a trek to get to Mike's Pastries. And then I feel like I didn't know that it was about the cannolis or anything until we walked in there. And I was like, just looking around. You just told me it was some pastries or whatever. And I thought that's good. But yeah, those things were big and rich, and we both got two. And we were both like, after one, we were like, nah, that was enough.
Yeah. Like, so I knew I only needed one because like I had previously seen how large they were. But like, again, because of the weight, I was like, there's no way I'm not getting two here. And yeah, I just couldn't. Yeah, there's no way. Yeah. It was so much.
We ended up doing a podcast with Shinja for TM32 and some of the other casters. And we just ended up sharing our extra cannolis with the crew there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very good time. Very fun podcast. Going to go up on the TM32 channel, I presume. So keep an eye out for that. You guys are going to really enjoy that one. I think it's a fun little behind the scenes of what happened at Ascent Boston and the projection going into that, and how many cases of rain Shinja consumed. So it was fun. But yeah, no, I don't know. I want to go on about Boston a little bit more because like the city is just so cool. There's like so many things to do. I don't know why I love Boston so much, but it's like, never mind. We'll move on.
Yeah. You're like the biggest Boston fan in the world, but yeah, let's get this to really talking about Grand Archive here at some point.
Yeah, no, let's just do that right now. Because yeah, like you said, Ascent Boston happened. It was very cool. First big event of Distorted Reflection season. We had a lot of players come out for the event, 269 to be exact. So not quite as big as Ascent Seattle. We're kind of seeing some of these like American NA Ascents average out around like the upper 200s to 300 or so. And I think that's kind of what we'll see. We'll probably see them like jump up into the low 300s over the course of the next year, I bet. But that's a pretty good size, I think, for these events moving forward. I'm pretty happy with that. And wow, there was just so many fire decks there. It was crazy.
Yeah. So the breakdown was 63% fire, 25% wind, 12% water, and you could really feel it in the room.
It was warm.
It was warm. It was warm in there.
The AC needed to be turned up. Actually, no, the AC was mostly fine.
It was really nice, actually. Yeah.
But there was so much fire. Of those fire decks too, like almost all of them were playing Rile the Abyss. 50% of all decks were playing Rile. So of the 63, Dan said that's like what, like upper or mid 80s, like 85% or so, give or take. So if you weren't playing Rile, you were trying very hard to just be faster and play some really crazy fire aggro. And to not really that much success, like we actually saw a lot of the aggro decks that did well this weekend were playing the Spectre package as well. They were almost all the Suzaku aggro decks with Rile the Abyss, which was kind of surprising to me. I kind of figured the Spectre lists were a bit more consistent, and that's what would be more helpful over the course of a 2-day tournament. But I think actually what happened is just so many people came prepared for aggro that you really needed the high roll potential of Rile the Abyss in order to do well with these aggro lists going into the event. So my hunch or my gut feeling is that if you were playing just any sort of other Rile-less aggro deck, everybody else was prepared enough already for the format. In general, I thought there was going to be a lot more aggro than there was. Like I very much biased my list to beat aggro going into the event. And I played like 2 aggro decks. I played 1 Fire Lorraine, and I played one other. I played a Wind Allies. I played JC on Wind Allies. And I think those were the, like, normally, I guess, yeah, it's more of an aggro list, but those were like the only 2 aggro lists I played all day. And the rest of it was all just like level 3 decks. So I did not have a great weekend. I ended up going 5-3-1 and just missed day 2, unfortunately.
Yeah. That was tough. So I just want to take that opportunity just to talk about like kind of the weekend and the performance that we saw, not just from like people on the main deck team, but just in general, right? From people. So going into this format, going into Boston, it was widely considered to be such a wide format. I mean, very fire focused, obviously, but just such a wide format in general, that it was the kind of the wisdom going into it was you should just play whatever you're comfortable on. It was just kind of a comfort pick format. Because no one thought that anyone had really solved a deck that could crush in this format. It really just felt like, well, there were just too many random decks to really like hone in on a particular set of things to beat. So just play what you're comfortable on, play what you know best, and try and outskill. So obviously a pin on part of that for later, but it means that what a lot of players did do is exactly that. Go into this format with, Taylor, you took Merlin because you're just a long time Merlin player. You feel good. You know the lines. We had some of our team taking fractals because it was, it felt like they knew the lines, they knew the math. People were a little less prepared for it. And then we had people on just a host of other just kind of random decks, Saryu, other Merlin lists. I don't even know. JC was on Wind Allies, obviously.
Yep. Spattering of Tristans.
Yep, some Tristans. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So Cabin on Jin, it's just like the good stuff, right? Everyone's just kind of taking whatever feels best. And the end result of that was that it was just a total crapshoot. You would have players who hit mostly good matchups and made it through, and then you had players who hit just 4 bad matchups, right? And then or like 4 medium matchups and like won or lost, but usually lost those, and then just ended up not making day 2. And you look across the board, you see just tons of names in the game, just seeing exactly that performance. But then the big kind of factor that we'll get to is that there was a team that identified a deck that was quite good against a lot of decks in the format. And that was, if you went up against them, you likely lost. And that really like took a number of players out of contention as well. So we ended up with just a few day 2s, but most importantly, the shout out to Maindeck Corbin for making Maindeck Corbin, who was the number 1 seed at the World's Gauntlet last year. Made it into Gauntlet at Nationals, number 1 seed in the Gauntlet, played in Worlds, and this was his first Ascent day 2.
It's been a long time coming, and I'm extremely happy for Corbin. He very much earned this one. He earned it playing Merlin as well, so shout out to him. He had his list set up more to beat level 3 decks, I think, and definitely was rewarded for that. Yeah, Steve and Mitch also of Maindeck, they made day 2 as well on Fractals. They played very well, so it's great to still see some homies make day 2. And yeah, big shout out to Corbin who finally got the day 2 he's been waiting so long for.
Yep. And on just because we're still working with them on TCG's side, we did have Cabin and Gurathos both making day 2 as well. Gurathos on Tristan, Cabin on, as mentioned, Jin.
Yep. It was really funny because like Perfy, like the leading up to it too, he unfortunately did not make day 2, but leading up to the event for like 2 weeks, he's like, I'm on Merlin. I'm locking in. And then like the night before, he's like, I'm on Fractals.
I like the Fractal call. I still like the Fractal call a lot.
I was going to play Fractals if not for the fact that like this is the first tournament where you could play Merlin like and expect to do somewhat well and not just like crash out in basically since like last summer. You could have taken it to a few tournaments pre Watermill showing up and done reasonably well. But yeah, this is, and like, as a Slimes meta obviously was like horrible for it, but you could still take it to some of those, and you'd still high roll some Slimes players every once in a while. So this being the first tournament when you can play it for a long time, when you could play this, I was ready to hop on board.
Yeah, that makes sense. And another thing about Boston, and about just like people's preparation in general, is that we were just coming off of Worlds, and the grind of nationals, some players flying around the world to play in multiple nationals tournaments, grinding those out, just like seriously like testing and spending so much time playing the game, the regional circuit, going into Worlds, then coming off of Worlds, a lot of players, I think, just ready to take it a little bit easier, to just to chill out a little bit. And I felt that as well. I just felt like in the community, it was like, oh yeah, Boston. Yeah, sure. We'll go to that. Or like whatever. Not like, oh yeah, I'm so pumped. I'm going to be trying to day 2. I'm going to be trying to top 8, whatever. It was, I think everybody just kind of needed a little bit of a breather. And so like from DTR really pushing people towards these fire Rile packages, and in some ways aggro decks as well, to people's mentality about the format and just people's mentality about grinding in the game in general. This was just kind of like, this is the one where everyone just kind of backburnered a little bit, and they're like, yeah, I'll show up. I'll play. And World Champ, I think, was feeling pretty similar too.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I like work kind of caught up with me too, so I just didn't have as much time to put into it as I wanted to. But yeah, no, let's say that's a really good excuse for why I didn't day 2. Yeah, definitely.
I was trying to give it to you there. I don't know. You should have just grabbed on.
No excuses. We don't listen. I'm not here for that. You either win or you lose. Like that's the way it works. That's the way it works in card games. There's a winner, there's a loser. Somebody's got to not day 2, unfortunately, and it was me this time. So, but next time, I will be day 2ing again. I will be making myself the proud owner of whatever Ascent CPR national invite card it is. I should have gone ham for this one because it was Ghost of Pendragon. Like obviously, like that's the one like I really want. So yeah. I'm a little like in retrospect, I should have like just really gone all out, but whatever, it's fine.
I just want to say real quick, you said there has to be a winner or a loser, but I have seen Maindeck Tony playing Luxem before. And there are a lot of draws.
When I say winner or loser, I'm not talking about individual matches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just had to throw that out there.
Rumor has it, Maindeck Tony has never lost or won a match of Grand Archive.
It's only drawn. He has 0-0-X records at every Ascent.
I feel so bad for his opponents now. Oh my gosh. Poor Tony shoving all these poor players into the draw bracket just right off the bat.
It's rough.
Yes. But yeah, no. So like you've been alluding to, there was someone who was very much prepared for this event, right? And obviously that was BobbyTortilla, the winner of Ascent Boston. So congratulations, BobbyTortilla, playing Fire Ensel. No, I mean, obviously that's not what you're alluding to, but
that is an important point to talk about later.
We got to start with Bobby, like the winner.
Okay, we'll
right?
start. We'll start.
Ensel was not the deck of the tournament, but it was probably the best level 3 deck to play in the tournament. I would say, maybe Jin, like the SoCal players had a really good Fire Jin list as well. That was very ready for a Rile meta too. Like I ran into it twice on Merlin, and that was really what destroyed me. But no, Ensel actually just ended up being the pick for the tournament as well, I think. And because of the deck of the tournament, like it actually had like a pretty decent matchup into that, right? I think he had I forget what his quarterfinals matchup was, but then he ended up playing against the second place list at least twice throughout the top 8 rounds.
Yeah, his quarters were against Burner.
Oh yeah, so he played it 3 times then. Yep.
He actually played that match 4 or 5 times. So the story. So okay. I want to back up a little bit
to the deck of the format, or to the deck of the tournament.
Well, okay, fine. We'll come back, because the thing we have to talk about is the narrative of Bobby in the event. But that narrative won't make sense unless we set up the villain of the story, right? Which is or hero, depends on who you ask. I think about this.
This is the hero that lived long enough to become the villain. Actually,
exactly. That's right.
Yep. This is very much, this deck was the hero of the day 1, and then day 2 unfortunately had lived long enough where it became the villain.
It was like too successful, right?
This was the stereotypical Harvey Dent into Two-Face transition here.
Exactly. Yep. So to not beat around the bush anymore, Chess Club, a very well-known team in Grand Archive, has been around for a long time, has some good success in the past as well. Pickle Sword specifically, who's the creator of the website Shout Out Your Decks that a lot of us like to use for our deck lists. Pickle Sword had identified this list for the team. The team tested it and they realized there is something very spicy here. The list is Fire, Wind, Vanitas. I'm not going to post it on screen here for the podcast, because you can just I just posted our meta update video just a couple, 1 or 2 videos ago, depending on how this goes out, that is going to cover all of the lists. So we'll look at BobbyTortilla's list there. We look at the Vanitas list there. So you can see everything you need to see about the list there. But the point is, this list is called Horse and Taxes. It is a ridiculous list that tries to basically on turn 2, go to Vanitas level 3, using a Dungeon Guide or a Beseech to go to 2, and then using Vanitas' activation to go to 3. Once you're at 3, you then, to get to 3, you have to play a 2-drop. So you play a Dilu or a Red Hair, ideally. But I'll probably have Dilu on screen here because it's the GOAT. It's the 3/4. It has Pride 3, but it doesn't matter because you're level 3. And then you use your Dilu and your Dungeon Guide or your Liminal Guide, because of course it's a Rile deck as well, to clear the way for your Vanitas to punch. Your Vanitas punches the opponent on turn 2, and now they just start being taxed +1 on their materializes for the rest of the game. You're going down to 0 to 2 influence most of the time, like literally 0. We see sometimes just no cards in hand, no cards in memory, just punch. And that doesn't matter because you just put so much pressure on your opponent, so much card pressure, so much damage pressure that they lose the game. And it was just crazy to see this deck perform. So many decks going like, I don't know, I just got rolled. I couldn't do anything. They just started punching me. They had the horse, they had the Vanitas. And this deck was wild, so strong that it had 6 players of their 7 in contention for top 8 in the final round of the tournament. Final round of Swiss. One of them had to be sacrificed. So they made it to, it was like a team kill, basically. So they made it to 5 of their 7 players in top 8 on this list. The conversion is obscene with this deck.
It's fantastic. Like this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying like people overreact to certain metas, because like this meta was very clearly primed for a deck like this to come in and just like take everything down, as shown by the insane success that Chess Club has had. Like obviously all those players are incredibly competent. Like you can't be given a deck and go to an event like this and not do well without being a good player or playing well, right? And on top of that, you have to also have a deck that can compete as well. And to have that kind of dominance, that means like not only are the players good, but also the deck is just like in the best position ever. Like this is insane. Like finding a deck like this is literally like the dream of TCG players in every single game. Like any you can pick any game ever and you've got a team of players and they're like, yeah, this is exactly what they're trying to do every single time they're preparing for an event, is find stuff like this. Right. So and in some games it's more difficult than others. Like in Magic, right? It's difficult to do because there's so much public information right off the bat. There's so many people playing that game with so many results and lists public that it's hard to keep things hidden, and also for things to not get found out just in general by the public. But like Grand Archive is like small enough where like things don't get out that much, and there's no real public data, right? Like we have Fractal of Insight, which is really cool, giving us these events, but the scale of data we have compared to other games it might as well be no data at all. I mean, that's hyperbole, but like these formats are not being solved in even like you could give 6 months for a format. The format would not be solved, given like no broken need to be banned right now cards
like Toronto, right?
Exactly. Yes.
That was that format, but they fixed it right away.
Exactly. Like these formats are not being solved in 6 months by the amount of players we have playing the amount of games they're playing. Right. So like clearly like things are ripe to be taken advantage of like this. So huge congrats to Chess Club for figuring this out and finding the deck that takes it all down.
Yeah. And Taylor, like we also say, I mean, so often, I don't want to be a broken record, but I am, because we always say we need people brewing in this game, right? We need people looking at lists, trying to figure lists out. And these guys did what we have, like you said, it's the dream. They found a list that absolutely destroyed everything in the format using a champion nobody was looking at all. I mean, there were a few people, like we saw a Razor Gale. There was a Razor Gale, one of the events going up to it, right? Just like a traditional wind Razor Gale Vanitas. But this and like in retrospect, it's like, well, yeah, just Rile with Vanitas. Like that's a good place to start and then figure your list out from there, I guess. But that's like how easy, honestly. Okay, I don't want to say this the wrong way because I don't want to downplay finding this list, because this list was so creative in how it used like the horses and everything. But it all starts from just looking at your pile of cards and going, Rile, Vanitas. What next? And like really just like start exploring that stuff. If you see this meta and you're like, what aren't people playing? Try that. Start there. And then from there, maybe you discover the next horse and taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's very similar to like the Oblation CL list we're running around too, right? Like, like on its nose, it seems like that's kind of like just like kind of a one trick pony, pun intended, that, it tries to like play an Oblation for 15 and do it twice. But there's so many different lines you can take with that, because CL offers you so many different like avenues to play cards with all of his own Omen shenanigans. So there's so many different ways you can do that. You can play blackjack, extenuating blackjack, or extortionating blackjack.
Extorting blackjack.
Extorting blackjack. You can not play that. You can play Orb of Sealing to help you control your omens and make sure Advent's the only card that is an omen, or you can just only omen Advent and that's it. Like there's so many different ways to like take that even though that's like on its face is like a pretty one note kind of thing, there's actually like 9 or 10 different directions to go with that and figure out where your plays are. And the same with like this horse and taxes deck and all of that. And yeah, that's like, again, not to downplay what Chess Club has accomplished, because this is like a huge accomplishment, and it's actually really difficult to kind of find these lists still. Like even if they are like ready to go or not ready to go, even if the format is like very obviously vulnerable from a certain aspect, it's not always easy to figure out exactly how to put these cards together in the correct order to beat everything else, or to beat what you're targeting, right?
Yeah, and I think we're both on that same page about like this was like finding this exact list and having the play skill to execute like they did. That is like worthy of all the accolades, right? And it was not a simple thing to do. It's something that I'm sure they iterated on a lot and found the exact perfect list that could take it down. But it's also just to provide. I think we really want to provide hope to people, and just like inspire people, because it all starts from just sitting down and exploring interactions that people might tell you, I mean, that's cute, but is it good? Like even going back to like the polar depth stratagem stuff. Like I'm sure not everybody, but a lot of people looked at cards like polar depths and looked at stratagem and were like, that's cute, but I don't know if you can really make a deck work with that. I
mean, leading up to Santa Clara, the whole time Steve was like, this is so gimmicky. We like this will never work over a whole tournament. Like, yes, it will. It actually is very consistent. Yeah. And so really what Dan and I are trying to say is like, just like I won the world championship, just like Chess Club and Pickle Sword created this deck and took down a whole tournament, like actually took down the tournament, like just destroyed top 8. You too can also have this kind of success. You just gotta have to like put the work in and start finding the lines and really not even finding lines, just experimenting and trying new things and seeing where things go and knowing when one idea is dead and to move on to the next. And, you know,
that's the part I'm bad at. I'm so bad at that.
I think that's the part a lot of people are bad at, but it's a lot of it is just like, don't get discouraged because like one thing didn't work. Like there's so many, this set has 200 some odd cards. The set before it had 200 some odd cards, right? We have 7 sets worth of cards. There's the card pool is like what? We're up to like almost 3,000 cards now, probably. I don't know. There's a lot of cards. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is there is like a near infinite amount of permutations that you can do to put cards into a deck, right? And so it takes time and it takes effort to go through and actually figure out which of those permutations are like worth playing and which aren't. And so just because the one thing doesn't work doesn't mean like nothing's going to work. Like you gotta put the work in to get to see the success that Chess Club did, right? Like they didn't just roll up to this tournament with this deck, right? They spent a lot of time tuning it and figuring it out and practicing with it. That's what it takes. That's what it takes to win. That's what it takes to be the best. So just keep trying.
Is that our advice from a literal world champion for this episode, or was that just free advice?
That is your advice from a literal world champion. Yes.
Okay. Now I know what to tag the segment in the video.
There we go. Yes. Perfect. So going back to how Chess Club became the villain that was the hero that lived too long. Obviously, it was very cool that they brought this deck and they just dominated the tournament with it and did super well. Obviously, they're still playing Rile, right? And of course, you see all these decks in top 8 and you're like, oh my gosh, it's more of the same. And this is how BobbyTortilla comes in and is able to save the day from Vanitas and his evil. What is their name? What's the
Obliviate?
The Obliviate, and from the Obliviate, yes. So yeah, like it was actually really funny because I was like, damn, this is so cool that Chess Club like came up with this tournament, and then all of a sudden like everybody's like, oh man, like Rile's still a problem. This Vanitas list is gonna be a problem. It was kind of wild to see like some of that shift happen, and then Bobby comes in and just like plays in soul through all these lists and takes it down.
Okay, I have to talk about this because this was just, to me, like, I don't understand how every single event, I feel like we get to the end, we see the narrative that plays out. It literally feels scripted, right? It feels like this is like some WWE nonsense or whatever. This crazy storyline that's happening behind the scenes, but it's just legit how this happens. So yeah, like you said, the emotional shift in the room was palpable. It was so funny to see like the beginning of the day. Like, oh man, did you hear about Chess Club's list? Like, have you seen what they're on Vanitas? Like, it's so, and we're like, whoa, that's so cool, man. I hope they do well. You get towards the end of the day, and everyone's like, that deck's like unbeatable, man. It's crazy. It's so good. Oh, I hope it's not Toronto all over again or whatever. We get into day 2. They have all this conversion. Everyone's like, oh, man, they're just going to destroy me. I can't beat them. I got wrecked by it. And so we finally get to top it. It's like, this list has to die. Like, these guys have to go. It's so, yeah, it was wild. But through all of that, we have BobbyTortilla, this player who I have to point out, Omnideck's number is like 17,000. Like this.
That's not correct. It's 570.
What? Everyone told me that. It was. Hold on.
No, it's definitely, unless it's wrong on Fractal of Insight. No, it's definitely 570.
They told me that. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I got lied to about this. I didn't double check the reference. What the? Yeah, number 570. Okay. Well, dude, I don't know. Now I'm just looking at achievements. Yeah, this guy, he's been around for a while. I just haven't. He's okay.
He's been playing with like the Virginia crew, I think, for quite a while. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking through here now. He played at Ascent Worlds 2024, and then this is why. Okay, it has not played any other Ascents since then. Placement there did 18th for their team at Ascent World, so that was pretty good.
Yeah. Two off from day 2, yeah.
Who the hell was I talking about? I don't know. I swear to God, somebody told me throughout the day, like, yeah, he's like number 17,000 or whatever. He's like new. Like, I don't know.
Are you talking about maybe Zero TB, who was on, is on Chess Club, I think.
From Chess? Maybe. Because I think that was it.
They're newer, but I don't actually know.
Maybe the wires got crossed there somewhere. So I'm sorry, Bobby. I got someone literally, I feel like someone lied to me, but I might have also just misunderstood that. Never mind. Bobby's been there since the start. Okay. So that part of the narrative is not real, because I thought this was like I thought he was newer and just like crushed everybody. Okay. Regardless. Bobby still went up against this Vanitas list on day 1. And from what I believe he said, lost to it. But then we keep saying it's like an anime Protagonist moment where you lose to it and you go, oh man, I know exactly what I did wrong. I know exactly how they beat me. Learns how to beat the deck and then has an EXO record against the list for the rest of the event. I have to pull it up here exactly, but I think it was either 3 or 4 more rounds that they just were able to beat over and over again. So all the way going up to beating Burner in quarterfinals, who's a player that obviously super well known, super, super powerful player, then goes up against Pickle Sword in finals, who's the creator of the deck, and then beats them in finals. Just incredible to see that all play out. And that's what really endeared everyone to this on-soul Rile deck that everyone wanted to see lose, but at the end of the day wanted to see it win instead.
Yeah. Honestly, it was like you said, he played against it once and then he figured out the tricks and kind of, figured out how to beat that deck, which, cause it's a very strong deck, but I do think it's kind of beatable. It has some pretty significant weaknesses, even if they're not obvious or easy to exploit. Its main offense outside of Vanitas is Dilu and Red Hair, which have Pride 3, right? So if you can keep the Vanitas list off of level 3, which is a little bit more difficult, or have an effect that reduces their level, the offense goes way down. They aren't doing a whole lot at that point, right? It's very hard to beat you down. And actually they're playing Baruch and Acolytes as well, which are also awesome when you're at level 3. But if you're below level 3, those don't do anything. So Dusklight Communion, which I've seen play in the past, obviously would be very powerful here. The new Tome of it's like Tome of Enlightenment, but the distortion, I forget what it's called, but if you're a mage, that gives your opponent -1 level. There's a couple ways to do this now in the game. So the clock is a lot more manageable when they're only hitting you for 3 with Vanitas instead of 3 or 6 or 9 with Vanitas and horses, right? And also, if you don't need to, before you hop in, if you don't need to materialize much, the tax just doesn't matter either, which is kind of where in Soul really shines. Once you're level 1 and you get your sword, or even if you don't get your sword, and you can afford to dungeon guide up for 1 or 2 more levels, the tax just becomes irrelevant. Getting taxed going from 0 to 1, especially as Lorraine, is really, really rough, right? Because not only does Lorraine cost 1 more, but also the sword you get costs 1 more. They both are going to cost 1 more because the on-enter of Lorraine lets you materialize the sword, which is a double 100% increase on Lorraine's cost, and potentially infinitely more for the sword, because a lot of them cost 0, or you have to get 0 for the sword from Lorraine, right? Which is insane. Whereas for going to level 2 or level 3, if you have to pay 2 or pay 3 to get to level 2 or pay 4 to get to level 3, obviously that's rough, but it is not actually that much more as far as percentages go. So that feels a little bit better, and she's just not really materializing anything else after in between all that stuff. She doesn't really have to. So she kind of gets by the tax.
Yeah, she's not quite as reliant on a lot of those materializations, and the ones that she does need, she makes back the cards later. When you just get to your crux, it's pretty easy to play a Ghost of Pendragon, throw back the Looking Glass, and then start to build up from there. It's actually, that's an underrated bonus from this deck, is having the Looking Glass out already, because if this were an old version of a Crux deck, you would really need to materialize something to get your Ghost of Pendragon online.
Here's the thing, though. Bobby was not playing Looking Glass.
Oh,
yes.
You're right. He's playing Ring. I remember now. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm thinking, I was thinking of the other lists. A lot of them were playing Inert Sword, but you're right. Now that I'm thinking back to casting the matches, it was Ring that he was on.
I actually really like that from the Insole list. I think after playing for the weekend, like Looking Glass is really good in Merlin. I think it's really good in like Spirit Ruler decks that are not necessarily going to like play in Soul or anything like that, or like they've got a different win condition other than just like one-shotting the opponent. So you want some of those better swords, and you want to be able to take advantage of Ghost of Pendragon and also like Spirit Blade Ascension. But within Soul, one ghost is fine. It's not a big deal. And just being able to keep your hand size up when you're trying to do Insole things is really important. I think sticking with Ring instead of Looking Glass is a really smart call, and kind of shows that Bobby put a lot of time into the deck as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, on the subject of me being corrected about things, which is, an ongoing process throughout my entire life, I also want to jump in and correct myself about Bobby's exact record against this deck. So the very first round Bobby played against this was against 0TB on round 6. And actually, Bobby won the very first round against it. Round 7 went against Burner. So that's the second time. And lost that one 2-1. So it was even then he still picked up a game against it there. Mm-hmm. This wasn't against it, but then he beat Perfy 2-1. I just want to point out the next one. Sorry, Perfy. Then going into day 2, the third match was against Burner again, round 11, and won that one 2-1. And then Modest Mewtwo, round 12, for the fourth time playing against it, won that one 2-0. Round 13 was paired against Pickle Sword, and they ID'd.
Yep.
Then I think I said quarters. It was semis that Bobby played against Burner again, and won 2-0 for the. So that'd be the fifth time playing against the deck, and then the sixth time playing against the deck, won in finals against Pickle Sword 2-1.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think Insole has a halfway decent matchup against it. I would, maybe guess.
It seems at least if your deck is built like Bobby's, and I think there's some keys to that too. The Fluffy Shopkeep and the Resolute Stand, and like playing to
4 of Fluffy Cop Shopkeep.
Yep, 3 Resolute Stands in the main. So like having some of those outs, using Resolute Stand on the Shopkeep, like I talk about in the meta update video, is like a play that is sometimes really good, but I also want to caution against just always doing it, because if you just like default to that, you're going down a card to Resolute Stand to not be taxed one. So it's like you have to do it very specifically when you know you need to protect tax, like losing a particular card to materialize next turn, versus like you were saying, Taylor, sometimes just not materializing is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I think the key is Bobby knew really well from playing it 6 times throughout the event. By that final round, really was the key, like honed in on those key lines to know when to lose cards, when to protect when to protect damage, when to hold up Clarent, like a durability of Clarent rather than swinging. Like you saw him making all of these really clutch decisions that are key to just. I don't think anyone can just sleeve up on Soul and be like, easy match, crush it. Yep. But you can learn the lines and then be really good against it.
Agreed. Yep. And I mean, like, this is kind of what we want to talk about too, as we wrap up Boston here. Cause like Ascent Taipei is like right around the corner. I think like right at the beginning of, towards the end of September. So a lot of people are going to be like going into that event, trying to figure out what to play next. And I think this Vanitas list is still going to have some legs. It's going to get underneath a lot of the Rile decks pretty effectively. Like, especially Jin, like this to me, this seems like it has to just like really like dominate the Jin list, like a pretty good amount. Making all of your levels cost more, making your Berserker's Plate cost 2, making your Shuangji cost 2, making your Chalice of Blood cost 1. Like all of this seems really, really powerful. And like a great way to just like really stymie that deck, because that deck really just relies a lot on putting those material deck cards down and then riding the card advantage to give you the victory. But if you can't really put them down effectively, you're in rough shape. I think like other ways you beat this deck are by just trying to go over it. Like Vanitas, if you stop the horse plan, there's not a lot of extra like damage in this list. There's Vanitas and there's like the liminal guides you have, and that's kind of it. There's no ramping fireballs, there's no Soul, there's no oblation to deal 15.
Like the big thing we saw them doing to find the extra damage, and this was so relevant, and this is one of those cases where Bobby held up the Clarent reimagined activation to not lose the game, but they play Fractal of Sparks as another one of their 2-cost plays.
Yep.
And they play Searing Rebuke in the list, which is a way, so the combo for people who are unaware is you use any of your self-damage sources, like your hammer, impact hammer, or you use Fractal of Sparks targeting yourself to deal some amount of self-damage, and you play Searing Rebuke that turn, so that when that self-damage hits you, the first 3 points will make some number of triggers of dealing 3 damage each time. So if it's like if you go Fractal of Sparks, target myself, Sparks, target myself, and then swing with Impact Hammer and take the hit of 3, you prevent all but 2 of that, but you did 3 preventions, 1, and then 1 of the 3, and that does 9 damage to your opponent. So you spike all that damage in, plus swinging in for 5 with the Impact Hammer, plus Vanitas' built-in 3. So that's like a boom, 14 damage out of nowhere kind of play that the deck can use as well.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it does have some reach, right? But it doesn't have anything that scales into the long game, really. Like 9 damage is a lot until your opponent has like a Majestic Spirit down, right? Or, right. If they're healing all your damage back with Luxem sites. I assume like Luxem is an okay matchup into this, but maybe not great.
I think a lot of these were tough just because the deck gets going so fast. It's got kind of like an aggro timeline for how it plays and the threats it puts down. And like Luxem has trouble with the fact that there's a 3/4 on board when it's a Delu.
Yeah.
And so like they can't get the 6 damage off the board. Obviously Vanitas' 3 is sticky. They can't get the 6 damage off the board at all effectively. And then beyond that, they still are having to pay for the materializes every turn, which is going to cause them to have to lose extra cards, which is causing them to potentially like risk their Luxem cards just to try and stabilize. And when they like finally are to that stage, it's just there's been so much damage dealt that they can just find a line to take them out. I think it's a little tougher.
I agree. Yeah, and they don't play fluffy shopkeep as well either to get in front of a couple of those first few taxes. So. Yeah. Luxem, I think, is like going to be an example of a Rile deck that really is going to struggle more here. But I mean, there's ways to play around it too. As we see kind of more wind and water decks pop up, they might have better ways to fight this as well. Like Vanitas is a if you're playing him during your main phase, that's an activation, not a materialization. So now all of a sudden Frostbind, like Cerulean Decree, comes into consideration. So there's ways to fight the deck, I think.
Yeah, and I like Cerulean Decree, I wanted to point out as well, is a card that is really cool, really strong in that matchup in particular, where like Resolute Stand is rough because you're going down a card just to stop having to pay an extra card for the tax, like I mentioned earlier. But Cerulean Decree is a card that they, number one, have to predict to try and like they have to predict the Resolute Stand as well, but they're usually Chess Club guys are really good about bringing out Impact Hammer when it's time to, pump up the damage to get through that like kind of projected Resolute Stand. They'd have to have the foresight as well, because they can attack with Vanitas and you can play Cerulean Decree to make the attack -3, but also draw into memory. So unlike the Resolute Stand, if they didn't predict the kind of prevention, well, it's not a prevention, but the decrease effect, and they didn't bring out Impact Hammer, you just go, actually, you're not going to get a hit effect this turn. I'm going to -3 the attack, but I'm not going to go down a card. And that's like a big increase in your velocity in that matchup. And that's something where if we start to see water decks, and I think our next subject is going to be about, like we talked about the Taipei meta and what people are going to predict. If we start to see water decks coming back, that's going to be something to look at as a way to just have like kind of a built-in, like, this is super good in this matchup and will really buy me the time I need.
Yep. Yes, exactly. So yeah, there's there's options. There's lots of things like this. This deck is a very specific reaction to a pretty specific meta. So I expect this to still be a strong deck. However, I mean, the game plan is very solid, obviously. Like, it's very streamlined, very powerful. Like, this is probably something you should be prepared for going into Taipei, and really any upcoming like regionals or anything like that for people that are not traveling to Taipei. Yeah, so be ready for it.
It's the case that you need to probably, people need to start packing tech that is like a little more specific to this. And that's what we missed going into this format, and why people had so much trouble is that like, we just couldn't narrow down quite as easily what are the specific pieces of tech that we need to be running to be able to defend against certain decks. And speaking of very specific tech, Taylor, we did get at the end of this event a new piece of tech that I think will very much change how people are approaching the Taipei meta. Do you want to tell people about that?
Yes. So after Ascent Boston, Sildar announced that they are releasing a card of Regalia from Phantom Monarchs early into Proxia's Vault. So it'll be a card that's legal through Proxia's Vault until Phantom Monarchs comes out, and then it will be part of Phantom Monarchs proper. So until then, you can proxy this card into your material decks. And the card is called Purifying Thurible. It's a 0-cost Wind Regalia. Has the ability, I should have looked this up, but anyway, you pay X, and then your opponent banishes X cards from their graveyard. And if X is 3 or more, you draw a card into memory.
You do have to banish Thurible as well.
You banish Thurible as well as part of the cost of this. Yep. So it doesn't matter how many cards are in your opponent's graveyard as well, which is great. Like, as long as you've paid 3 reserve as part of that cost for X, you get to draw the card to memory. So they can have 1 card and they banish that 1 card. If you paid 3, you still get to draw your card. But this is going to be a pretty powerful answer to a lot of the Rile packages, I think. Rile was also moved to Category 2. I'll just say really quickly. I don't know if there's really a whole lot more to talk about to that. But so that might be going away in the future. It might not be. Depends on how Thurible actually, I think, shakes up the meta. But anyway, this Thurible is just like a super powerful answer into Rile, into basically any wind deck. Any wind deck now can slot in Thurible and 4 Beseech the Winds and have like a really good play into Rile on turn 1. That just really kind of stymies all the advantage the opponent would get from Rile. It doesn't matter if you're on the play or the draw, but you get to like Beseech into Thurible and hold up 3 to activate, at least 3 to activate, to have your opponent banish anything they would have put in with Rile, and then also draw your card and replace itself.
Yeah, we have a video that I think is already up on the channel when we post this about Purifying Thurible. It's about an 8 or 9 minute video. That's just kind of, or maybe it was 10. I don't know. I haven't edited it yet, actually, so I don't know the length of time that it ended up being. I just know what my recording was. So it is a video that is just kind of explaining Purifying Thurible and going into just some really basic math about, when you materialize this, what happens, what you're paying for it. I recommend people give that a watch especially if you're newer to the game and are still learning about kind of the impact of certain tempo plays in the game, like the tempo of the game, when you can activate something to actually stop the opponent, and what you need to do, what you need to hold up, and what you do with all your resources. Because Thurible is very different than Nullifying Mirror was. Nullifying Mirror was brought out early to deal with the last Vanitas deck that was a problem, which is funny. So that was brought out, but that was a really simple card. It was a little tricky, but still was fairly simple. Just it came out and it said, if your opponent activates a thing like a wind card that is going to prevent damage, like Veiling Breeze, you activate this, and then it stopped. It just stays out there and it does its thing. There were some little intricacies with timing on things like imbuing windmill engineers and stuff that you have to be aware of, but otherwise it just kind of did its thing. And it was like more important that you brought it out just whenever, right? It wasn't like I need this right away at the start of the game. Thurible is weird because I need this right away at the start of the game, because otherwise Rile just goes, I don't care. I already got my value. I discarded my float. I leveled. I got my liminal out. I called it a day. And so it's a little trickier in that way. But in some ways also, Thurible is like a lot stronger in that it's like just generically, this card is backup charger. Like this is wind backup charger, but instead of getting a power cell that you may or may not use in the game, you are getting to banish cards from your opponent's yard, or more specifically, they choose to banish cards, but you get to banish an unlimited amount of cards as long as you can pay the reserve cost from their graveyard, which is good against Rile, which is good against fire decks. Suzaku hates this card existing because they play Peppered Chef, and you're like, in response to the on enter, banish all the fire cards from your yard. Or actually, in response to Suzaku's trigger is maybe the one to do it on. I haven't thought through that part yet, because I think it'll trigger and then they banish the 3. So you want to make them sack the Suzaku first and then banish the yard, right? So
yeah, well, so I mean, it kind of depends on like if you are trying to avoid damage or not, because you can, if they see their graveyard go away, maybe they don't sacrifice the Suzaku. And try and keep them around for another turn. I like there's play there. There's weird play there.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess it depends if you want another turn or not. It's probably where it comes down to. But I mean, it's good against Suzaku. It's good against Rending Flames, right? Lorraine just going banish 3, whatever. It's good against the Jin deck that was popular because it's number 1 running Rile already. So are all the others for what it's worth. But also they were trying to put into play. Sometimes they're trying to put into their yard. Boy, I just blanked on its name. What's it called? The Proof of Life. That's it. Yep. The banish this to wake Jin up. It's good against water Genbu and like water decks that might be coming back into the metagame now. I feel like I could just keep going on, but this
is like such
always good.
This is a very ubiquitous wind card. Like if you're playing wind, I think you have to have a pretty good reason to not include this in your 12 material deck cards. And right now I can't think of one. I can't even begin to think of what one might be. I
can't, because even when it's bad, it's just backup charger. It's just cool. Pay 3, banish some stuff. I guess it's bad against slimes, kind of. Like maybe
it's actively bad against slimes. Yes. But thankfully slimes is such a bad deck right now that if your opponent's playing slimes, like you're like, oh, I don't even need to worry about Thurible this game. I've already won.
Bro, you haven't seen Rile Slimes yet, dude. You haven't seen Rile Slimes. It's going to go so hard.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to play it at locals at some point this format, unless Rile gets cat 3'd. I'm going to play some Rile Slimes and have a fun time.
Yeah, fun for your opponent, maybe.
Not a long time, but a fun time.
Yeah. So, like this is going to not only I think is this just going to be good in general to the Rile decks and any other deck like that really is relying on its graveyard. Which is like most of them in Grand Archive, by the way. Like most decks are doing something with their graveyard just because there's so many mechanics that flow through it, and with floating memory being such a defining mechanic of the game, like you're just almost always going to have a good target for Thurible. But even if they don't have anything going on in the graveyard, that's just like having more draw cards in your material deck that have other effects is just super powerful. We saw that a lot with Fractals last season, where like Wanda Frost and Scepter of Fascination were both just really super strong plays that replaced themselves. They needed like floating memory to actually like get you ahead and draw an extra card, but those were just 2 really good cards that had just kind of what seemed like smallish effects stapled onto it that overperformed, I think, in a ton of matchups.
There are decks that run Portentous Tengu, not Guoja, just to draw a card.
Yep.
They'll run Fractals did. Fractals run backup charger and Portentous, but I was like keeping it open. There are other decks that did that too.
Yep.
And that alone is enough to say, well, okay, cool. Like this card has got to be a staple win card going forward. By the way, that's I've been thinking. That's a really good video idea that I might do really soon here. Just like, what are staple cards if you're new to the game that you should be looking at just to pick up to start building decks with? And like, if this were Phantom Monarchs were already out, I'd be like, that's a staple card. You need to get a Thurible if you want to play Wind. It's perfect for Wind decks. I can thankfully say right now for Proxy's Vault, if you're listening to this before Phantom Monarchs releases, you can just print and play that card. It's which is cool.
Yeah, it's great. We love it. Very excited about this new edition. So obviously that leads to a lot of like fun wind shenanigans you can bring to Taipei or any regionals. Tristan obviously I think is a huge benefactor here. Obviously, some of the wind ally lists I'm not a big fan of them currently. They kind of fold to interaction pretty well. But I think we could potentially see just more aggressive wind allies lists that are more of the traditional like hanky special 52, 53 allies and less of the kind of like ranger strides things that are going around with the wake up combos. Potentially have a little bit of room now, although they don't necessarily get to like beseech this out. They do get to like play it well. And it costs them a little bit of tempo, obviously, which they're not excited about, but they played backup charger still. And this is just going to be better for them than backup charger in a lot of situations, or at least I shouldn't say better. I should say as good as, because like a lot of those lists are playing a lot of automatons too.
Yeah.
So backup charger obviously has impact there, but this is also going to have impact in slowing your opponents down and helping keep like other liminal guides off the board to, make it more difficult for them to fight your board. I do think In Soul is like going to be one of the better Rile decks moving forward too. It's still like I was of the opinion that it was a good Rile deck going into this tournament, and I think now it's kind of solidified as like one of the better ones. I think other Rile decks are not going to do as well with some of the other new players. I think with the Vanitas deck running around, with In Soul running around, and potentially with some other like answers running around, or other decks that can kind of just like play a long game as well. We'll see things like Jin kind of fall off. We'll see Merlin fall off. Mm-hmm. Luxem is in kind of a weird spot because I think it's going to fight some of these decks pretty well. I think it's also going to lose to like some of these decks. It'll be like, I'm kind of like seeing that as like a middle of the road kind of pick. Sure. If you're like a Luxem diehard, go ahead and play it. But I wouldn't be looking to pick up Luxem as somebody getting into the format.
I think Oblation CL is an interesting one to think about here. Mm-hmm. It's a deck that I think it overperformed expectations a little bit. It didn't make top 8, but Death at War was 15th with it. Yep. At the event, and really Death at War showcased its power really well multiple times on stream. It's a deck that really has good resiliency, similar to On Soul, the ability to just play like out a Grand Sonore just to punch damage through for 3 turns, just like Lorraine was doing with Clarent. Plus having like On Soul has its own kind of spiky, crazy damage combos. The problem with Oblation is that even more than Lorraine, that Thurible is pretty obnoxious to see, because you really want to banish your omens from the graveyard to get full value. But on the plus side, I guess CL can still banish omens from hand. So if you want to go down a card to play around Thurible, I guess you can do that.
You can see like CL lists running more like Cremation Rituals and Library Witches instead of kind of like other floating memory sources or other card advantage sources. Because like if you throw in a Library Witch into Cremation Ritual, like your opponent probably should Thurible that, but it doesn't feel as bad as like losing other resources. Like, sure, you don't get an omen out of the graveyard that way, but it's also only 1 turn, and then now they've got to find another way to stop your like Rile engine moving forward.
Yeah, so there's like a tricky thing they'll have to do if you go those like draw card lines, put Cremation Witch into the yard. You can freely omen those, right?
Yep.
And so your opponent has to decide, like, do I stop omens from the yard right now and force them to go to hand, or do I save it for when they pitch Advent? Yep. And they're just not going to pitch Advent until you pop the Thurible, right? So it's like, I think good back and forth there, because I think I'm on the side of probably Oblation has more play around it than other decks, and can adapt pretty well.
I think CL in general, not just Oblation list, but I think there's a lot of room to explore with CL, and I think if you can find a good CL list, that's going to put you in a good spot. Like, there's just so many dumb things you can do with omens. Like his level 2 lineage release, just letting you activate omens at fast speed, regardless of what they are, is really powerful. Same thing with what the heck is it called? It's the Umbra card.
Grim Pastiche.
Grim Pastiche. Thank you. Yeah. Yep. Like both of those are just really, really powerful. Letting you getting timing windows on stuff. Like you can get like fast speed Regal Inquisitions, which is really dumb. So like
there's some dumb stuff.
Yeah. There's like a lot of room to explore with CL still. Like I know he's obviously been the most explored new champion so far out of him and Diana, but I still think he's got a lot of potential. Just the kind of lines he opens up and omens open up is pretty wild. Diana, I think, has potential to like see some play, but she's got more things for people to figure out, I think. I know you really like your fire list, and that's pretty aggressive, but I think I don't know if we'll get that to the point where either of us would feel like comfortable taking that to a big event. But like I think Wind and Water, Diana's currently underexplored at the moment. So
I think the thing about Diana is that her cards all read absolutely insane. Like every Diana focused Aether charge or whatever does 200 things and then also is +1 damage on your attack that turn, which is like, it's like, if that's what I was really getting into with the Fire Diana list, which we'll have a profile on really soon as well. Just for people who do want to play that. It's a very, very fun list. But like all those cards, if you just take the fact that they're an Aether Charge and say that means it does +1 damage, in addition to everything else, it says deal 1 damage to your opponent's champion. When you start reading everything like that, it feels like a busted deck. It feels like it has no right being as good as it is, let alone when you start putting those things on a Trivariate Dream to actually make them all +2 technically. It stacks up really fast, goes really crazy, even in the Wind and Water ones. And actually I'd say especially in the Wind and Water ones. But Diana has a problem where she's asking you to do such a very, very hyper specific thing that has there's two issues with that. Number one, there's one way to like really hold the deck down, and everybody knows what it is. It's you deal with the Aether Wing. A lot of people actually don't know rules wise when to do that. I've learned talking to very established players in the game, very established players on Maindeck team who seem to think that when you attack with the Aether Wing and you unload everything into intent, that if you answer the Aether Wing, that stops all of the damage, which is incorrect. Everything in intent still adds its power onto the attack. So people don't understand that necessarily. But then they still know in some way, I can answer this thing. I can deal with the damage some amount. I can make Diana have to play a new one. And having just this really obvious kind of, that's the heel. Cut the Achilles heel, and then the deck kind of slows down a lot. That's something that Diana has to force through in some ways, and that's caused players to play, I think, too conservatively in some ways and not materialize Trivariate Dream and instead push less damage when they could have gotten free kills. So that's something I think people need to look at a little more when they're building the deck, like how to play it, how to play around it. But also, I think it says you need to play all these charges in your deck. You need to play all these disenablers. And to me, I'm watching Astra Arasana come into the metagame in real time a second time, because it did take Polaris, obviously, for Arasana to get there. But even after Polaris, people were like, what's the list? Like, how do you actually put this together? Because we need the herbs, and we need the Astra cards, and we need the leveling, and we need all these little components to make sense. And the exact brew, how many of each thing to put in and what things to focus on. I'm currently not seeing, and I'm actively looking through Diana lists that are getting posted or that are going on to Fractal and seeing like, what are people playing? And I think it's there. I think like the list can be discovered, but people need to keep taking some of the golden idols of like, well, obviously you got to play 4 of this, 4 of this, 4 of this, and taking them down. And then explore more of what else goes in the list, what actually shores up the matchups. And I think eventually we'll see a Diana list that's like pretty capable. It's going to be really skill intensive, but I think it'll be capable of competing.
I think too, like wide open formats are not good for her specifically because like a lot of players are loading up on Aether charges, which you do need to hit a critical mass of Aether charges in your deck. But at the same time, you don't want to play too many because otherwise that's all you see. And so you actually need to find like the right mix of aether charges for the format too, especially in like water and wind, where your aether charges start like doing, like answering certain effects, right? Whereas like in fire, they're all doing damage, and sometimes they damage the board, sometimes they don't. But they're not doing anything else. But like you've got like the aether charge that negates a card unless your opponent pays 1, and you've got an aether charge that is there one like a wind one that suppresses there?
Yeah.
There should be, right?
Yep. There's a suppress an ally one.
Yeah. There's a water one that also gives an opponent's unit -3 power that turn. So like, there's just like a lot of these different effects that are going to be good sometimes and bad other times. And if you load up with the bad effects, obviously you're going to have a horrible time. But if you load up with good effects, you're going to have a really good time. So like that requires a little bit more kind of like meta knowledge, I think, in order to succeed. And the format's kind of getting to a spot where we have that meta knowledge available. Like the format is obviously condensed quite a bit from pre-Boston, and even Boston was condensed a lot more than I thought it was going to be. So like I think we're at the point now where like all you Diana stands out there should be brewing and be checking things out.
Yeah, another way just to really like encapsulate this conversation, to make it hopefully just a little more digestible for people. But it's like going into this format, we knew fire was crazy. We knew fire was good, but we also know in every single format when we start off, fire is the easiest deck to build, because the whole purpose of a fire deck typically is I want to consistently end the game quickly, as efficiently as possible, whether it be going to level 3 and already having 10 cards in hand to Luxem like double Lightweaver's Assault, or to be a fire aggro deck that just says, here's my opening hand, I have this way to kill you on turn 2. Boom, you punch it out there. And so building a fire deck for a Diana is exactly the same thing. It's just put in 4 of every aether charge that deals damage to the opponent on turn 2. And then when you do that, it turns out you have like a million, like 15 to 19 damage lines that you can do on turn 2 or turn 3 at the worst. But when we go into those water and wind decks, that's not the goal necessarily. They're trying to play later into the game. And when you start playing later into the game, you just need different effects. You need a variety of answers to things to be able to deal with the format. And it's not something you can easily string together for a first major event, because you don't know what your answers need to be, and you don't know what your ratios need to be. And like, if you just, I'm gonna shout out, not shout out, I'm gonna degrade, I guess, Prudent Knock, which is a card that is like it's the aether charge that is draw a card into memory.
Yep.
Is all it does. Yep. It's a solid card in the same way that like Journey's, what's it called? Journey's Blessing or whatever, the Guoja card that's just draw a card, get a quest counter. It's like, that's a card you can jam in your deck. It's always going to do a thing you're okay with, which is to draw a card and then slightly advance your game plan in some way.
Yep, I agree. Slops to Prudent Knock.
Yeah, because when it comes down to it, that's a great card in fire, because fire just wants to go, how do I put damage on my Aether Wing and then not lose influence? That's fine. It's still worse than all of the like streaking Mana Flare and stuff, Mana Flare Streak, whatever it's called. It's worse than those ones because those actually progress your win con, deal extra damage, and then do the thing. Because you don't win the game for having more cards in hand than your opponent. You win the game for dealing damage in that deck. But when you start trying, and I see like water and wind decks where people are playing this, and I totally get why you're playing it, but it's not actually doing the thing you want to do in that deck, which is answer the board. Like actually play around your opponent and get to a position where you win the game. And those decks are going to be much better serviced, I think, by playing other Aether charges. It's just like figuring stuff like that out, I think, is the thing that still needs to happen. Yep,
I agree. Yeah, I think like a lot of the Diana decks we'll see pop up that are successful are going to be like similar to like Noel's Water Merlin list from Utrecht that like that was another water list that understood how to like push damage while it like played the game, so it didn't have to like just end the game in one fell swoop while playing like a myriad of different effects and stuff. So we'll see things like that. I am hopeful anyway. We'll see things like that. So
yeah, going forward, going to Taipei, a lot of win decks definitely to look at. Win Tristan, win Luxem, win Seryu, win CL, win allies. Like, get those Purifying Thuribles out there. I think those are going to have a really solid matchup into the Rile decks when you have the right tweaks on them. And then I'm looking forward to seeing people kind of explore how to attack win decks with like water decks, or what water decks can keep up now that maybe Rile is going to be held back just a little bit. I think a lot of people are a little bit sad about the amount of Rile still in the metagame, but I have a lot of optimism that that's going to adjust. How about you, Taylor?
I have a ton of optimism, actually, because not only do I think Thurible is a busted card that is going to do a lot of work, also they'll just ban it if they need to. Like, then it's gone.
Yeah, I mean,
it'll be really gone from the meta. So
true, but I like what it does for level 3 decks. I want it. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I want Rile to stay. I just want it to have counterplay that makes sense, and I'm optimistic that it will.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, but I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but I actually think Rile's not the problem. Like, I think Liminal Guide's actually like the issue with Rile. Like, Rile putting you up 2 cards isn't actually a big deal, especially when there's a million ways to answer that already. It's Rile putting you up on cards and then also putting bodies on the board. Like, Rile discarding Liminal Guide, letting you level up. Like, if you discard 2 float or 1 floating and limiting Liminal Guide off Rile, you've now gone even with Rile, right? You're going to go down a card to level. You might not even go down a card if you're only leveling to 1. You're just using that 1 floating memory. So now Rile's already a +1. Liminal Guide's going to banish itself. You're drawing a card. You're +2. Now you're getting the Liminal Guide body on the board as well. It's a +3, right? Like, Rile on its own maxes out at +2, and that's only if you're like able to use both the floating you discard. But Liminal Guide coming back and making that +3 is just bonkers. Like, that's insane.
I think the tempo, and I talk about this in the meta update video as well. It's that tempo that it gives you of getting a float and a +1 card when you go to level 1. That is like the really underrated thing that people some people didn't immediately like feel out why that's so good. But if you were to just discard non-Liminal Guide cards to float, the max advantage you get from Rile going into your turn 2 is just that 1 floating memory, usually going to your level 1 champion. And then that float kind of sits around there going to another turn. So like Merlin can eat it, or this like the second float, right? Merlin can eat it, or like a Thurible type card, or a Scavenging Raccoon, or a Sea Sprite Diver can eat the other one. And it's not doing as much, but it's the fact that it immediately gives you that +1 benefit from the Liminal Guide, which then extends or expands your turn 2, giving you an extra card in hand, letting you play either another card or a stronger card or something that then compounds, right? And then it means that your turn 2 is better, so your turn 3 is better, so your turn 4 is better, so your turn 5 is better. And that's why those Liminal Guides are really like they're the impactful thing that Rile does. So it's like a combination though, like, because like if it was just Creative Shock, you could only discard 1 card anyway. So it's not hitting. So it's like, do you hit the Rile that's the discard 2, or do you hit the Liminal that creates that +1 advantage? And I think the reason Rile is hit is because Liminal still does interesting things in other decks, potentially, where like aggro decks, like the Suzaku, are playing that Liminal out to be able to sacrifice it to a Peppered Chef or whatever. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not like if it wasn't for Rile, they would not be playing Liminal, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, probably. No, Hasty though.
No, he still would not be like, nobody's playing Hasty outside of level 3 decks anyway.
What? Like, actually, that's literally wrong based on the result of Boston. We had a Xander deck that placed in the teens that was doing pretty well. I think that was not playing Rile, was playing Hasty, was playing Liminal. If I remember right, maybe I'm misremembering.
You are correct. They have 3 copies of the Liminal Guide, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, that's
it is pretty cool. It is pretty cool with red hair too.
Yeah, Superior. It was Superior's list. That's right. That was so neat.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think like if you can play Hasty, you can play Rile. Number 14th as well. Slow volatile. I don't know how to pronounce it. There's too many consonants and not enough vowels. Yeah. I think we're just calling him Vodal on stream. Yeah. But anyway, like if you're playing red hair and Hasty, in these like lower to the ground, especially Xander, actually, since they take a couple turns before going to level 1, unlike Suzaku, Daochan, a lot of the other fire aggro decks just go to level 1 on turn 2 right away. I think, that engine's a lot more playable, but what I'm getting at is like Rile, even if Rile was a +2, it's like just slow enough on its own. I don't think it's actually an issue where like the tempo and the card advantage that Liminal Guide gives you is actually the busted part in combination with Rile. And so you could just like, you could ban Liminal Guide and Rile would be fine, still like letting level 3 decks do some cool stuff. I do agree. I think Liminal Guide is the more interesting card, and I think has other fun applications outside of Rile the Abyss. So I would be happy with them banning Rile if that's what it comes to. I just don't think that's actually the problem card.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in full agreement. Mostly just devil's advocating and kind of like discussing maybe some of the reasoning that went into the ban. And I was mostly just excited that I could correct you on at least one thing in this podcast when I normally take all of the corrections.
Everybody's got to get a win at some point, unless you're Maindeck Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can always say that that Maindeck Tony is the one who is most needing but least deserving of the wins on the team.
Damn, that one was actually pretty harsh, but I'm here for it.
No, I'm just kidding. He's been off luck some, so that's been good.
Yeah, exactly. We set him straight. But yeah, hopefully I anticipate we won't need a ban. I expect the player base to figure out the meta in such a way that like there's good non-Rile decks and we'll see Rile decks taken down a peg, especially with Thurible in the format. So I'm very much looking forward to that and to seeing the results of Taipei and the upcoming regionals over the everywhere in the world, I suppose. Dan, one thing we did forget was to do an ad read tonight. So I'm just going to let the listeners know, let the viewers know, if they want to help out the channel, support the channel, you can go to jwwcards.com, get your sweet pre-orders there. Phantom Monarch's not up there yet, should be shortly. I'm not sure if they'll be up by time of release here or not, but just keep an eye out for it. Hit like and subscribe on the video on the channel, please. And thank you on any of your platforms where you're watching it, whether that's YouTube or any of your podcast platforms. Why don't you go ahead and leave a comment? If there's things you like, leave a 5-star review. All that stuff's good. If you guys, again, like we have a literal world champion right here ready to give you advice. Feel free to ask some questions, ask for some advice. I am happy to feature that on the podcast and get you the help that you need in order to take down Ascent Taipei or whatever your next regional or your store champ or even your locals. Maybe Mitch shows up at your locals sometimes and you're like, I really just want to beat that guy. I'm here for you. I will help you beat Mitch, specifically Mitch. All that stuff. Dan, you got anything else you want to add to that?
I don't think I'm needed for this podcast anymore.
Excellent.
Actually,
all right. Well, no, I'm not doing a solo podcast. I'm not about that life. Before we sign off, though, I have one thing I want to do here that I think is going to be fun. Maybe less fun for the audio listeners. So if you're on audio and you decide to cut out here, that's fine. Thanks for listening. But I might be at Fargo Locals here this weekend. So I've got a list I'm brewing up. Dan, I have a card here that I'm holding up to the camera with the card back facing the camera. I think it's good against the list you're going to play this weekend. What you're going to play is Water Diana, this fun Water Diana brew. If you can guess what this card is, I will show you and the viewers. And if you cannot, it will remain a mystery until our next episode. So I'll give you 3 guesses. And if you ask some questions, I might answer your questions. I might not. We'll see. So here you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is, does this card prevent attacks in some way?
I will answer that. And no, it does not.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out what's good against. Oh,
one could argue it does. I would say they're wrong.
Oh, is this Rose?
Nope.
Ah, shoot. I thought I had a decent shot there. I know how much you love Rose too. Okay. Does this, let's see, prevent attacks? I mean, you could argue that maybe if it would go ahead and do something like take a weapon off the board or a regalia off the board, but what would be an interesting card you would show me that would do that? Does this take a regalia off the board in any way?
I will answer that. It does not.
Okay. Well, I'll avoid that line of logic then. Does it? But you could. One could say it prevents attacks, which means that it. I mean, it could. Man, it's not going to do anything with allies though, really, because I don't care about those. I don't think it's going to be that useful against that. Can you tell me what element it is?
No, I definitely cannot.
You can't. Yeah, it's impossible to tell. Nobody can actually tell what element it is.
No,
it's a mystery element. Can you only play this at level 3?
I'm not going to answer that.
Ah, come on.
Nope.
Okay. Is it Spirit Blade Ascension?
It is not, but that was a good guess.
Yeah, it seemed like a fun one. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I get one final guess here to try and figure this out. Oh, is it that Neos Taunt unit Throne Sentinel?
Ooh, that is a very good guess, but it is not it.
Shoot. All right, well, are you gonna come on? You got to show the viewers. You got to. After that, the viewers can't be left hanging.
No, I mean, they'll have to wait till next episode. If you want to figure out what this card was that destroys Dan's deck, his Water Diana deck, you'll have to tune in 2 weeks when we come at you with another Recollection Step. And until then, everyone, we want to say thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and have a good one. And we will see you in the next one.
Wow. I hope you guys don't feel too bad after not learning the card. Well, hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
They will learn the card in the next episode.
All right. Well, make sure you come back then. Bye, everyone.